This new Isometric RTS is so old school that it kicked my butt not once, not twice, but 3 times on medium difficulty in a single day, despite giving me active pause to use. I haven't been so butthurt by a new indie game since I was learning to play Moduwar. And with its pixel art style, little to no hand-holding, great controls and quality of life features, the Fertile Crescent 2 is a fantastic new release which you can play from the 18th of August. So in this year, rich with RTS new releases, it's time I give you an in-depth look at the sequel of TFC, subtitled Collapse of the Bronze Age. It arrived just in time to jump into all those memes about the Sea People and the latest Odyssey movie. They are actually mentioned in the game too, but the story takes several unexpected turns, and of course I'm not going to spoil it for you. However, I do have to mention this is a sponsored video by its developers who made a big effort to expand their game's idea and content with this sequel. The game offers a single-player campaign spread across 10 missions, which unfortunately aren't voice-acted. There is also Skirmish and Multiplayer for up to 4 players on several different map types, locations, and 2 map sizes. It has a wonder you can build, while its system of choosing your main civilization during the game instead of in the setup screen is just short of completely unique. These civilizations are the Hittites, Babylonians, Assyrians, and Egyptians. Unlike the first game, each civ has 4 unique units and 9 unique tech upgrades. These are, however, mostly just percentage based and uninspired, which is something I just can't pass on. I know many devs are probably sick of me telling them this, but tech research needs to change the way a faction plays or give you new abilities and tactics, not just upgrade existing stats by X percentage. Now, the second thing more RTS developers need to embrace is to find a way to avoid early access. Luckily, these game developers already decided that Fertile Crescent 2 will be in early access for only 3 months, which is both short and rare and very opposite of what most game devs do. Yes, it looks tempting, sell copies while working to finish the game, but the market is so saturated at this point with tens of thousands of games being released on Steam every year, your game's early access version will simply be forgotten and buried by the time you even get close to releasing the 1.0 version. It's a hard pill to swallow, I know, but the world has changed and we all have to change with it. Find investors, do Kickstarter, get better publishing deals, but launch that 1.0 version and start strong right out of the gate. Now, with that said, let me take you on a quick tour of some of the campaign missions and then we will take a look at the Skirmish and Multiplayer. The missing tooltips explaining difficulty level will hopefully be fixed by the time you are playing, so you will have an easier time choosing the appropriate level for you. The devs did envision and design the Fertile Crescent 2 Collapse of the Bronze Age to be beginner-friendly, even to non-RTS players, and honestly they did a good job of it in most things. The ones that they didn't, I gave them feedback and they will probably fix that too. The characters you get to lead in this game are varied, from an axe-wielding old-timer warrior to a leader archer and some less powerful ones you meet along the way. They are heroes of sorts, capable of dealing more damage and taking more hits, but don't have abilities, nor they can win fights on their own. And for a campaign experience, I think this is excellent design for low-key characters, especially in a historical setting. But being able to resurrect them then clashes with the historical theme somewhat. The UI fits the theme by its graphical design, but we RTS fans can't seem to escape the boxes glued to our screen edges. It almost feels like we are boxed in. Since I play on 4x resolution, it's a good thing there is a large UI option, and while I don't really like the font as it has some oddly shaped numbers of different sizes, I did get all the information I needed at a glance. If you want more, you can click on units and characters, for example, and go through their individual stats, like melee, which is for some reason called close combat attack damage. I mean, okay, maybe that sounded better to someone, I'm not going to microjudge. Am I doing too much judging on the smallest of things? I mean, I do have more time to look into these sorts of things since I started doing YouTube full time, and if I annoy you with such things, do let me know down in the comments and I will try to reduce that. Anyway, each unit has lots of different stats you can compare and pick the best unit to keep at the front to tank the damage from enemies. One cute little thing I just have to point out is that when you travel between missions on the campaign map, a cool detail on its own, is the loading bar, which is made up of moving silhouettes of characters you have with you on that mission. Here in the second mission, we meet some new characters who will join us on our journey, and if you don't mind reading all the conversations, you will learn both about who they are and how they behave. This is also when you finally get some villagers to try out the resource gathering. There is food which can come from half a dozen different sources like trees, fish, deer, several other big land animals, and of course farms. Wood, well, from trees, and bricks you make in clay pits. Those clay pits actually share their buildable location with the farms in fertile ground. Metal is a resource you find quite a bit later in the campaign. The big advantage of an isometric camera and pixel art style is that everything is so obvious to the player and easy to figure out even without tooltips. There are actually a lot of these, and they are short and concise, even coming with pictures and icons, but what annoys me is that they take your controls, pause the game, and jump at you in the middle of the screen. This is something I talked about before in showing another game, and I just don't like that approach. I think on the side of the screen, interactable and without pausing gameplay is a better choice. Feel free to tell me your opinion on this in the comments below. This mission actually has one of the rare hand-holding elements, as the game shows you the location of the large enemy group patrolling the map's paths in between outposts you need to visit. But if you follow the story exposition and character conversations, you will have noticed your new friends, the rogues, are tailing the enemies and letting you know their location. So yes, you are getting some gameplay help, but it's not artificial, and that, my friends, is great game design with attention to detail, which also adds a lot to immersion. It is only in mission 3 that you finally get a chance to put down a full town center and build up from there with all resource types available and needed to continue. What the game explains in one of the centered screen tooltips is that this blue circle around the town center is the distance at which villagers get upgrades from a tech that arms and armors them when defending the town center. Now, that whole mechanic is a bit gamey to me personally, but I guess you could say that if a villager is close enough to the town center, they can grab a spear and shield from it and defend, while if they are far away, they are unable to grab weapons to defend themselves. What this also does is to prevent a villager rush, which you could really do in this game because of the food system. Now, this is something you won't find in many games. The idea is that the more food you have stockpiled, the faster your tech progress is, and the faster new villagers are spawned by your town center. You can see this at the top of the UI, and later in the campaign, as well as in the skirmish, you will find buildings which, once captured with outposts, can increase this villager birth rate even more. Another boost comes from tech. With villagers being automatically created by the town center unless you manually pause it, you can amass a considerable number of them quite quickly. Off the top of my head, I don't remember games with a similar system, but if some game title pops into your mind as you watch this, let me know down in the comments. This is, however, a massive trap you can fall into in both the campaign missions and skirmish gameplay, because you can get so economy greedy that you skip on the militia upgrade for villagers to defend themselves or produce units, as you chase a high number of villagers that you end up being defenseless when an enemy raid comes your way. The other side of this coin is that if you don't have enough food, your soldiers starve and die as they stand, so you can become defenseless in an eye blink if your population is starving and you overtrained units. As I pointed out earlier in the video, this is old school gaming, no attack timers, no warnings and no autosaves, at least not right now. That is the only thing that can save you from having to restart the mission completely, unless you get into a habit of manually saving. Frankly, I don't think people have a great manual save habit in 2026, so I made sure to mention the necessity of an autosave option to the devs. Hopefully it will be active for you in the early access release version or one of the next versions after that release. So that is how the game crashed and burned my mission the first time, and before I show you how it happened the second time, let me just point out 3 very good quality of life features. First is simple, as villagers automatically go to help others who are constructing buildings nearby. Second is that the rally point for new villagers remembers which resource you set it on, so even if that resource node is no more, your new villagers go to collect more of that resource. But the third one is totally amazing, since you can't pull villagers into the town center in this game and they can fight, as I already explained after the militia tech upgrade, you have a button in the bottom right UI which lets you send them back to their previous jobs once the dust settles. Take note devs, every RTS should have this feature. So the second time the campaign AI cleaned my clock was when my army was off completing mission objectives and a raid came to my resource gathering outpost and killed half of my villagers who were too far from the town center to get into their militia mode. The mission after that finally let me construct walls and watchtowers, and once I was able to put up to 4 slingers on my towers, I had far more capable town defenses. Being able to put units on top of towers, if not walls and gates, is another feature more games should have. And last example of how the game got the better of me was when I tried out its Skirmish. The UI for Skirmish and Multiplayer is quite similar, the only difference is that in Multiplayer you pick a region to play in and open up a room to set up a match. Currently it's max 4 players, while the AI has some funny difficulty names, including the one that says cheating. At least it's upfront about it. As I mentioned, you don't choose a faction when setting up a match, but as the match progresses you unlock new civilian tech. Then you choose a civilization as your faction. If you can get to that point, that is, as the AI burst my economy bubble after just 6 minutes in a match on medium difficulty. And do notice how he used his villagers as backup to his military units. So that has been my experience with the pre-release version of the Fertile Crescent 2. I hope you enjoy the preview and will decide to pick up the game and try out its gameplay modes and content. Let me know what you think of it in the comments below, and for more new games check out the cards on the screen or links in the description. Thank you for watching and happy gaming!